I just read 5 classic horror books and one of them left me feeling traumatized. It has been a journey, but it all started a few weeks ago, a month ago now, when I was craving a little bit of spooky season. Hello, today is July the 20-something, and I really miss Halloween. I really want to experience a bit of Halloween. It's one of my favourite times of the year. I used to say that Christmas was my favourite time of the year, and then Halloween just kind of like the spooky vibes. It just ended up being a time of the year that I fell in love with, especially with me pumpkin-scented candles. I used to love a good bit of pumpkin soup. So yeah, it's quickly taken over as my favourite time of the year. And one of the greatest things about being a reader is that it doesn't have to be Halloween this month for me to be able to enjoy a little bit of Halloween vibes. So I've decided to read some books that have been on my radar for a good while, bar one. And I thought I'd do it because one of the first ever audiobooks I got was the Monsters collection. And this happened because about a year into my first subscription of Audible, I very quickly realised that I was subscribed to Audible and I had no idea where I got that subscription from. I didn't know I'd signed up to it and I had 12 credits to spend. And I wanted to try and spend it on as much as I could. I wanted to get as many minutes as I could, and apparently I didn't really know about fantasy books back then, and I decided that the Monster collection of 3 to spend it on, and I've never used it. So there will be an audiobook used for this one. I'm going to use an audiobook for 3 of these books out of the 5, and then I'm going to read the other 2 without an audiobook. So yeah, let's get into what they are. I've got the 5 books here. I've made sure they're quite short reads, apart from this one, which I was going to say this chonker, but then I thought, oh, hang on, wait a minute, you've read the Stormlight Archives, so some of them I've read 1 or 2, and we all know that one Stormlight Archive is quite big, so compared to this thing, which I think is about 300 or so pages, it's not even that much. I'm going to tell you them in the order that we're going to read them. Starting off with this bad boy, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And I actually found out that this book here, that isn't even the size of it. It turns out it is actually only 58 pages in this book. 54 pages in this book. The rest of it is just different stories. So actually, it's not necessarily a book, it's more like a short story. But I bought this many years ago thinking I would absolutely love it. Back when I was really into buying Wordsworth classics. And obviously, I don't know much about it. I'm actually going to go into this one quite blind. I think it's a bit obvious as to what Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is about. But the only information I know about it, based on my time seeing kind of clips of it and seeing adaptations of it, to an extent, is that there's a guy with 2 personalities. This is Mr. Hyde and the other is Dr. Jekyll. And there used to be a Dr. Hyde who was a teacher at a school that I went to. And when people would call him Mr. Hyde, he'd get very angry with them. And he would say, "How dare you call me Mr. Hyde? I worked hard enough to get my doctorate." To which I'm thinking, well, why don't you go and do something that the doctorate is for rather than become a secondary school teacher who's going to get grouchy about that? But now I've grown up, I'm starting to think that maybe he thought we were calling him Mr. Hyde, because I believe Mr. Hyde is the bad one. Don't know much about it. I'm not going to read the back or anything, because I want to go in blind with this. If you know, you know, but I'll tell you a bit more about it as the vlog goes on. So that's the first one that I'm going to read, and I can't imagine it's going to take very long. Second on the list is something I had to repurchase. It's another Wordsworth classic. I did actually have this in the Wordsworth classic print originally, and this is the style that they used to go for. But this, I don't know, they've gone for a much more funky cover this time, and I bought this specifically for this vlog. And I'm really excited to get into Frankenstein. I originally got rid of it because I didn't see myself ever reading it. I'm not sure why. I don't know, maybe I was just going for a phase where I was like, I don't think I'm going to pick up, classics anymore. I don't know. I've read classics in the past, so why I wouldn't pick it up, I do not know. But it had been sat on my shelf for a long time and I hadn't read it, so I got rid of it. But then I got it again, and I'm really excited to check out Frankenstein. I know this one. I've seen it as a play. I think it was a Benedict Cumberbatch play. Very cool. And I know enough to know that Frankenstein is not the monster. He is the guy who makes the monster. And that's about all. I also know that the monster is treated badly, and I think it's one of those where it's like, who's the baddie here? Is it the monster or the people? But we'll see. I'll tell you how I feel about the themes as I get into them when I'm reading the book. The next one is the longest in the collection that I'm going to read. Again, this one is one that I've had for a long time, and it's Dracula by Bram Stoker, and I'm really excited by this one. I've read like the first few pages a few times. Like that it's in first person point of view. I didn't expect that for Dracula. Obviously, this is the thing that has inspired all of the sort of Transylvanian vampire things. I think, if I've got that wrong, let me know, because then there might be other books that I could read, which would be really cool. But again, I don't know a fat lot about this. I haven't watched any Dracula films. I've seen, obviously, clips, and I've seen pictures and images, and obviously around Halloween time, people like dressing up as this guy. Even I have dressed up as Dracula, but I actually don't have a clue what I'm getting myself in for with Dracula. And the only thing it says at the back of this print is, listen to them, the children, like what music they make. And I'm really, really looking forward to seeing what happens in this book. I have no idea. I love going in blind. One of the best things about books is going in blind. And I know that I'm semi-not blind, because I'm inspired by all of the imagery that I've seen and all the things that we've seen in the past. And I know this book has gone on to inspire other people like Stephen King. More on him in a minute. When he wrote Salem's Lot, he did, like, in his introduction, he does talk about how this is a book he used to love, and when he wrote Salem's Lot, it was his way of doing vampires. He says it's vampires done the way he sees it. Talk about that in another video, maybe. I don't know. If you want to read Salem's Lot again, you let me know. But either way, I will be talking about Dracula. I'm very excited for that. And the next one on the list is one that I am so excited for, because I have watched the TV series adaptation of it. Not even adaptation, I think it's just a TV series inspired by it more than adaptation. I've watched it so many times. I absolutely adore it. I don't know if the book's going to live up to the TV series. And the book I'm talking about is Haunting of Hill House. I have no idea if it's like that. I know it's not like the TV series. I know that the TV series is kind of like an original works, I guess, based very heavily on the things that happen in this book. I am stupidly excited for this one, because I love a ghost story. I love a ghost. Ghosts are pretty great. I'm not gonna lie, since I was a kid, I have been obsessed with ghosts. I live in a part of England that claims itself to be one of the most haunted places in England, although I do get the instinct that everywhere claims to be the most haunted places in England. When I was a kid, my mum and dad would get very annoyed with my fascination with ghosts, because I would refuse to sleep because I was terrified of ghosts, and they just didn't know what to do with that information. I wouldn't know what to do with that information other than say, no, ghosts aren't real. I don't know. I'm not a skeptic. I'm open-minded. But either way, I'm really looking forward to seeing how The Haunting of Hill House stands up to that. I'm also very excited to say that when I was in the library the other day, there has been a sequel to this book, not written by Shirley Jackson, by somebody else more recently, and it might be one that I want to check out if I end up falling in love with this book. I also think the print of this is super cool. It is a Penguin Modern Classics. I really like this creepy image of this lady upside down. What is it actually on? It's just in Reeves. I think that the image of the lady upside down is cool enough for me. But yeah, so that'll be the next one that I pick up. And then the final one, speaking of the king himself, no horror reading experience would be complete if we don't read a bit of Stephen King. Now, I have read Salem's Lot. I have read half of it, and I always DNF it. I think it's usually because my mental health has not been in the best place recently over the last 5 or 10 years. Every time I go to read it, I get about 500 pages in, and my mental health has been drained, and it's not to do with the book, it is just to do with whatever's going on in my life. So I've put it down a few times. I've tried to read The Shining a few times as well, put that one down, DNF'd it, not because of the book. It's usually down to me and my mental health, and I don't know, can my mental health make it through a Stephen King novella? I don't know, we were all good with Salem's Lot. Salem's Lot I made through quite easily. I loved that book. But The Mist is one that I've only heard of the films. Again, I'm going in blind with this one. I have no idea what it's about. I know there's some creepy stuff in some mist that covers a town, I think. But that is about all I know about this book. And I am actually just stupid excited for this read through, mainly because for the last, however long, I have been reading just fantasy books, and they're big, big books, and they take a while to get through. So I'm looking forward to just rinsing a few of these and being able to get the vibe of the books much quicker than I would a fantasy. Just a little note from editing, Maxwell. There are spoilers ahead for all the books that I'm talking about because I don't know how to keep a lid on it apparently. So lots of spoilers. Do prepare for those. And if you haven't read the books and you don't want to be spoiled, then just skip to the next one or come back to the video when you've read them. Okay, sorry about that. So I am going to be starting off reading this bad boy. I'm going to do an hour-long reading sprint to see how much of it I can get through. I think for 54 pages, and I'm using an audiobook as well, the chances are I'm probably going to rinse through this today, but I'm not really sure exactly what I'm getting myself in for. I don't know if I should be nervous or scared, or whether I should just be aware that it's probably not that scary anymore now it's aged. So we're going to find out. I am looking forward to seeing what Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is all about, so let's dive in. So I have just finished reading Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and I have to say I did it all in one sitting. I was actually only meant to read an hour's worth of it, but by the time I got to the end of that hour, I was on the last chapter, and I thought, well, you know what, I need to just read the rest, because I need to know. And I will say the first thing about this story that I've noticed is that it has been horrendously spoiled for everybody who knows what it is, because I think most people know the twist of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I think it's just something that you kind of grow up knowing. I don't know why, but it's just become one of those things that it's just public knowledge that Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde are the same person, and the story itself is written as a mystery from the point of view of a lawyer called Mr. Utterman, who is utterly confused about what's going on with this Mr. Hyde and why he is so connected to Dr. Jekyll, who is an old friend of his. And as the story goes on, the mystery gets more and more gripping. Mr. Hyde becomes more and more evil, already a pretty horrible person at the start of the story, trampling on a child. I don't believe the child got killed or anything, but not a very nice fate for the child. And then, obviously, just getting worse and worse and worse. The book itself has some really amazing themes. Like, there's some really interesting themes there. This idea of duality and this idea that we are actually both good and evil at heart, and he decides to go and experiment and bring that evil out. I think there's a different route he could have gone down, i.e. he could have, brought the evil out to then get rid of the evil, so only good would exist, but instead he decides to use the evil to his advantage, which obviously then backfires on him as the experiments just go totally wrong. So in a weird way, I wouldn't even say Dr. Jekyll was necessarily the good guy. Like, he's referred to as the victim, but is he really the victim if he is the one who has kind of pushed this upon himself and decided to use it to his advantage? Like, the way that he was describing it was, oh, Mr. Hyde does all the bad stuff, and I can just sit here and be like, well, Mr. Hyde did it, so I'm okay, my conscience is clean. But really, aren't you the one that brought upon Mr. Hyde at the time you felt like it was relevant? So does that necessarily mean you're the good side? Just the side that didn't commit the heinous crime or whatever it was that you did? So yeah, not sure I see Dr. Jekyll as a victim in this particular book. It does say in the book somewhere that there's always been a discussion as to whether he is the victim or the oppressor or the attacker or whatever, the assailant, as it were. And I think I admit that he is both in some ways, in the fact that later on when he wants to get rid of Mr. Hyde, he is obviously not pure evil. He's obviously more nuanced than Mr. Hyde, who is just evil manifested. But even so, I've got to say, I'm not really impressed by you, Dr. Jekyll. I don't think you're a very good character. So the book itself, I have to say, would it have been better had I not known the truth or the actual twist at the end? I would say yes. I would say if I had to pick this book up, no idea what it was about, fully blind to a point where, I had no idea what the answer to the mystery was, I think it would have got to the end. It felt very, like a what's it, a Sherlock Holmes book. It felt like Sherlock Holmes in the fact that we had loads of mystery. The mystery was presented to us, and it wasn't until the very end that you get the full details as to what's going on. And in the same way that Study in Scarlet, the first half of that book is just Sherlock Holmes finding all of the clues and being somewhat mystified by it, and the second half telling you the full story without Sherlock in it at all. It does a bit of an opposite approach with this one. I was expecting it to be about Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but actually it was about a guy called Mr. Utterman, as I already established, and him finding out, and then eventually the last chapter was us getting the final piece of the puzzle. So I actually think if I had read this, without any idea as to what was going on, like fully unaware that they were the same person, I would understand why this is such a well-received story. In fact, I do understand that. I think it's like the author can't help the fact that he wrote a classic piece of fiction that everybody sort of knows the spoiler to now. Like, it's not his fault. So if I was to objectively say something about this, is that it is a very good book. Did it horrify me in such a way that I would like a kind of horror-esque book to do so? And I would say no for the most part, but yes, towards the end, I think particularly the moment when Jekyll woke up one day and looked in the mirror and he had become Mr. Hyde, I think, yes, that particular part did freak me out a little bit, and I thought, oh my god, imagine waking up and not looking like yourself. That idea freaked me out, and it was just the way that it was described, that he looked down at his hands and his hands were in fact Mr. Hyde's hands, and then he looked in the mirror and he saw he was Mr. Hyde and was freaking out about the fact that he'd become Mr. Hyde, and was he now stuck as this creature of evil. And I think that bit did freak me out a little bit. The idea of duality freaks me out. The idea that there is evil living within everyone is something that has plagued me since I was a child. I have always been very keen not to be evil. I like to think that most people are keen not to be evil, but I've always been freaked out by the idea that anyone can be evil at the heart. Whether I believe that or not is something I don't generally believe that to be true, actually. I think as a kid I was worried that there's loads of studies done about serial killers and they look a certain way and they act a certain way, but I actually don't think that we are inherently evil. I think we're all capable of stuff, depending on how we are brought up and depending on the experiences that we have in life, but I don't honestly believe that we are all evil. I think we're also nuanced, that it's very difficult for us to just be pure evil, and it's very rare that someone is pure evil. I don't think it's impossible, but I don't think every single person is born with pure evil at the heart. But that's a bit of a rampage about that. The story of the book, I have to say, I just sat there and I just devoured it. Like, I had a great time. I went in with chapter 1 feeling a little bit nervous. Always do with classic. I don't know why. I've read War and Peace, and it took me 50 pages to get into War and Peace, so I knew that I had to push through, and then we got through that. But, so Classic isn't so bad. It's just one of those where there are different rules during the time that Classic books were written. There were different rules, and there were different things that we expected of writers back then. In fact, we didn't expect a heck of a lot, and writers were often just really good at putting together a nice story. And it isn't the first Classic that I've been surprised by, but, of course, I think Classics are great, but I do go in with a level of trepidance and nerves that I'm not going to be able to grasp and understand it. But my goodness, when you're in there and you're immersed, absolutely fantastic. So I'll be moving on to Frankenstein soon. Not exactly sure when, probably tomorrow, but I'm really looking forward to seeing where this all goes. And maybe by the end of it, I will get a little bit more terror. My version of horror that I enjoy the most is feeling slightly creeped out. The kind of horror that you don't realise is scary in the moment. You read it and you think, that is kind of scary. And then tonight, when you turn off the lights, you start to think, oh, I'm actually really creeped out by that, because all I'm thinking about is that particular element of that particular piece of work. So that is, for me, that's what horrifying is. Maybe tonight when I turn off the light, I'll imagine that I've got Mr. Hyde's hands. Probably not. Very unlikely. I don't think that's going to happen in terms of like that kind of thing. It's more ghost stuff, so I'm expecting that out of The Haunting of Hill House. But next time, Frankenstein, so who knows where that's going to take us. So, I'm not gonna lie, it's the same day, and I was extremely tempted to just dive into Frankenstein. But before I do, look at this little bit of book mail that I got today, right? It is the first Star Wars story, right? Except it's written for children, and I've got a 3-year-old, and basically, I've been dying to get her into Star Wars, and realized when I started watching Star Wars Episode 4, not a good idea, because right at the start, Darth Vader is choke holding someone, and I thought maybe that's not the best idea to show that to my 3-year-old. But then I found this, and I can share the love of Star Wars by reading her the book. So when she comes back from nursery, you bet we're going to be sitting down and diving into her first little bit of Star Wars. Anyways, I am running out of battery, so I really shouldn't be talking about Star Wars when I'm not actually even meant to be talking about Star Wars in this vlog. I'm actually meant to be talking about Frankenstein. So, Frankenstein. I'm really excited for this one. I have no idea what's going on. I know that it's told in letters. I don't know if it's all told in letters, but I know it opens up being told in letters. I know loads of people have told me that they read it at school. I never did. My school was clearly not cool enough for this kind of thing. I really, really enjoyed my first foray into a bit of classical horror. So much so that I can't wait to just eat it all up and read as much as I can. I feel like because I spent all that time reading classic this morning, my brain has shifted gear into that classical writing style, and I've wanted nothing more than to sit down with this. And as I've actually managed to complete the editing for one of the chapters of my book today, which is one of the main things I need to get done, and I've actually got nothing left to do, it only makes sense to do another short half-an-hour reading sprint and basically get started with a bit of Frankenstein. So I'm going to sit down with it now, and I'm so excited. So here we go. I have just finished reading the opening section of the book. I am about to start chapter 1, but I wanted to take a quick pit stop and say I've always wondered why this book opens up with a group of letters, and frankly, I don't know why I've never read it. I don't know why the idea of it being letters has always put me off. No idea why. Really glad that I've got through those. They're really good, like a really exciting journey. I was left wondering how has this got to connect with the story of Frankenstein as we know it, because of course the only thing I know about Frankenstein is it's a dude who makes a monster by reanimating other parts, right? That's what I think it is anyways. And we start off with this guy called Robert Walden, who is sending letters off to his sister, and they find this dude who is like absolutely in a really bad way, and they basically restore him back to health. And he gets to know this guy, and the guy sees that he's got this level of ambition about him, this Robert guy, and he's worrying about him, and he wants to pass on his own story, and so that's how we lead into this book. And this book is almost as if, I don't know who wrote it, I don't know if Robert Walden's meant to have written it, or whether the guy's meant to have written it, who I'm assuming is Frankenstein. I'm assuming the guy that he's on the boat with is Frankenstein. I don't know this for sure, but yeah, the rest of it is from first person point of view, I think. I don't know. I haven't read on, so I don't know if there's more letters and whatever. But so far, this has set me up to be extremely excited for the rest of the book, because I want to know how he got to this state, and I want to see where this goes. Where does this end? Like, I actually, this is the great thing about these stories, is while you might know the basics of what these are all about, like with the Jekyll and Hyde, I kind of knew the concept, but I didn't know where the story went or what it was about. And already after those first 17 pages, I am starting to feel myself get drawn into this book, because it set up this question of who is this guy that he's met on the boat? What is it about this guy's story that is going to alter Robert Walden's life? And will Robert Walden change his ambitions by the end, or will he get drawn into the same thing? Who knows where this is going to go, but I am on for the journey. I've got 12 more minutes left of this reading session. I just wanted to stop there and do a little pit stop and say, this is what I've read. And basically, I just want to talk to you my expectations now that has been set. Like, those 3 letters set this really interesting expectation of this is going to be a real story of woe about a man who has very high ambitions, and those ambitions end up causing him to lose everything. That is what I'm expecting from this story. So I'll drop in again soon. I've just hit page 85 of this book, and just like Jekyll and Hyde, I am devouring it. I'm finding it so fascinating. The character that we're reading from the point of view of Frankenstein is such an interesting build of a character, and the themes within the book resonate with me quite a lot. This guy grew up with a nice set of parents, which is not something you often see in books. Usually the main character has some kind of tragedy at the start of their life. That is not so for Frankenstein. He actually grew up with a very caring mother and a very caring father, and those two things combined make him quite sheltered, I guess, growing up. And he's always had this kind of thirst for science, and he doesn't really know what to do with that straight away. But then tragedy does strike, because I was thinking, hang on a second, he's got this way too good, something's got to go wrong. And it did, and his mum dies when he's 17 years old, which is very sad, but also introduces a couple of concepts that I can totally relate to. I am a very privileged person in the fact that I had a very lovely, very happy childhood growing up, and quite like Frankenstein, I also lost someone when I was fairly young. I was 9 though, he was 17. He lasted longer than me with his happiness, and that was my granddad that I lost. And so when he starts talking about the loss of his mother, it was a very sad scene. It did actually immerse me to the point of feeling quite genuinely sad. And I think it was because it was talking about themes that in my life I have also felt. I think the first thing I always feel when I lose someone, and when I go through that grief, is frustrated and angry that it had to happen that way, and that I had to go through such a loss, and that we live in such an unfair world where we can fall in love with somebody and then we lose them. You know, and that, to me, that seems like such an unfair system, and it gets me very angry and very upset. And obviously then it's this feeling of like, why can't we do something to change that? And of course that is really the basis of what sends Frankenstein on this mission to kind of use science to almost bring life. And I don't think it leans into it as heavily as I thought it was going to, but the first quarter of the book is him just getting to know how he can bring life. And I think it comes from his subconscious need to never feel that powerless again. Like when he lost his mom, I think he felt quite powerless. As I just said, I feel like we do feel quite powerless when we lose someone that we care about. And it is the fuel that set him on this quest to basically bring somebody back from the dead. And I'm really enjoying the fact that to me that makes Frankenstein a very relatable character, and his pursuit seems so much more understandable than Dr. Jekyll's pursuit. Dr. Jekyll seemed to like the idea that he could kind of write himself off of being a villain, whereas Frankenstein is actually just trying to learn how he can create life. Now, where do we stand with this? Is Frankenstein doing this because he wants to feel like a god, or is he doing this because he genuinely wants to find a way of bringing people, like reanimating people? It's never, so far it's not been made very clear as to whether that is the case. But for me, I feel like subconsciously, based on what happened at the start, based on the tragedy being losing his mom and how horribly visceral that was, I do believe that he is obsessed with that plight because of that. And he never, in my opinion anyway, from what I've been reading, he never seems to put himself on a pedestal or have a god complex from what I'm seeing. But he is obsessive. And I think that's another thing that I can relate to. His obsessive pursuit to find a way to reanimate is something that I can relate to, because I, as a writer, sometimes fall into my own obsessive pursuit, where I shut everything off and the focus becomes working on the book, and I find it very difficult to disconnect from that. And it's very difficult to spend time with my family when my brain, in the back of my brain, it's rattling, oh, you want to write the book. So I do understand how that feels to be so consumed by your work, although thankfully, unlike Frankenstein, I'm actually around my family and do try and break that level of concentration just for 2 days a week. But no, I think it's something I could absolutely relate to, and it even felt like I think it was the family friend, I think, was his name Henry? It began with a C, his actual name. Claw? Blah, 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 blah. I don't know, I'm going to find his name. And I think Cleverell said it best when he was saying that you need to, like, stop getting so obsessive about this. We're wondering where you've been. It's been 2 years now. Your family is starting to get worried about you. And of course, this all happened around the time that the monster came into it. And the monster so far hasn't been referred to as a monster. Aberration, maybe, and demon, but never monster. I actually was expecting something very different with Frankenstein's monster. I was expecting, I don't know, you see a lot of things of this gothic laboratory, don't you? This idea of Frankenstein's this gothic laboratory where this monster is brought to life and then goes out and attacks all the villagers, and that's not actually happened in the book so far. In fact, what's actually happened is a lot darker than that, in the fact that Frankenstein, when the monster had cleared and he was trying to recover from the shock of what he had created, found out that there was a tragedy back at his home where his little brother had been murdered by someone, and it is apparently a lady called Janice who did it, who swears that she is innocent, and Frankenstein sees the monster there, and I'm thinking, at the minute, I'm like, did Frankenstein's monster really kill the boy? Or was it actually Janice? Like, I still don't know if she was innocent. I don't know if I'm being played to be made to feel like it's the monster. Then again, I don't think there's been any malicious attack during this. If it was the monster, I do believe it was probably out of an accident that was not meant to happen. And I do believe the monster probably had a good reason for this. It does seem like they're going down the route of the monster who is talking now. The point that I've left it, he is actually talking and telling a story, telling his point of view of what happened when he left. So I'm thinking, is the monster even behind all of this stuff? Because at the minute, all the monster wants to do is experience life. And we look at our children having such childlike wonder, and we think, oh, that's so cute, they're exploring the world. But Frankenstein's monster didn't get this. It tried to experience the love of life and was learning all these things in the same way that we do, but at a quicker rate. But every time he was seen by someone, he was getting attacked, and it was, yeah, it's not a very nice existence for the monster. At this point, I am actually only just starting to find out the monster's point of view of it, but so far, the books really grip me, and it's really nice to be able to be feeling fully immersed in something. The classical literature is just so Moorish. It's very Moorish when you start going. I have been listening to the audiobook along with it, and I wanted to make a little note about that because I made an observation recently in one of my videos about how I wanted to slow down my reading and how I wasn't using a audiobook anymore, and I have since changed that, mainly for this one because I've owned this audiobook for a while and I kind of wanted to listen to it, but I've decided, instead of trying to listen to things at 3 to 3.5 times the speed, I've tried to listen at the speed of which my eyes can move across the page, which is about 2.2 at this point, and that doesn't when I'm listening to that, it doesn't sound very fast, it just sounds at a normal pace, which means I can take all the words in and I am able to enjoy what's on the page more rather than just trying to whiz through the book. And I think that has been really beneficial for these read-throughs because it's meant that I've been able to actually take in the words and take in what the author intended me to take in and just actually experience this work for what it is. I'm not really sure how much longer it's going to take me to read this. I think maybe a day or two, because I'm only doing an hour's reading every day. But so far, Frankenstein is definitely better than Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I mean, it's longer anyway. But in the fact that it's set up so well, I really like the fact that we had like almost a prologue, and then we're wondering what happened to Frankenstein, and then when we do meet Frankenstein, we actually get connected with the character very well. It's just really good writing. It's good writing 101, and it's just nice to be able to see how Mary Shelley is putting it all together, and I can't wait to find out where this one goes. I finished reading Frankenstein, and I gotta say, it was absolutely fantastic. It was gripping from start to finish. I don't think I knew anything that went on in this book. Nothing that I have seen in popular media revealed any of the stuff that actually genuinely happened. I think this is such a tragic book because it is a man who does something, I think, triggered by love and by grief, only to bring into this world another creature that wants nothing more than to love, but is shunned because they are a monster and they don't fit into society. And so Frankenstein's monster ends up being a very sad, very upsetting character. And it touched upon some really cool themes, one of which was this idea that when you bring life into this world, are you not responsible for loving it, for allowing it to be what it wants to be? Frankenstein's monster never asked to become a living being. And when Frankenstein was terrified and shunned him away, it set off this horrible chain of events which caused this creature who had every opportunity to be good and kind and loving to turn into this vengeful, hateful creature who, even at the very end of the story, doesn't seem to want to do what they're actually doing, but then at the same time doesn't know what other existence there is, to the point where when Frankenstein is no longer there and he can no longer cause pain to Frankenstein, he doesn't really know what to do with himself anymore. And I think that is such an interesting idea. For example, my daughter, I brought her into this world. She did not ask me to give her life, and now it is my job as a parent to guide her and help her get the best possible start in life and give her the skills it takes to be able to live. And Frankenstein, in many ways, probably should have done that for his monster, but there was no place for this character who society shunned for no reason. It was a character that very much had the basis of being able to be something great. Frankenstein's monster could have done a lot of good for humanity had humanity allowed him to thrive. And that is what makes this such a tragic story. And I think it was almost like reading an essay in the fact that there was so many different points of view as to what was right, and the fact we actually got to hear the story from the monster's point of view and found out what he was thinking and how very sad and tragic it was. Every time you heard the monster talk, it was clear. But then again, when he said to Frankenstein, I need you to make me someone to love, and then Frankenstein decides not to do that, it's really understandable why he would do that, because even though this creature is intending only to love and to experience life, the new creature might have a completely different mindset, and together they could be very, very damaging to the entirety of the human race. So that was a really good point, well raised, and it was hard to decide who's had the moral correctness here. I was kind of upset that Frankenstein's monster had killed Frankenstein's little brother, but I also sort of get that Frankenstein's monster didn't have a moral compass fully developed, didn't fully understand its moral compass, and so therefore acted in such a rash manner that when I heard, or when I read Frankenstein thinking about how dangerous these monsters could be, it is true, because this monster in particular was very impulsive, and if he felt angry, just went out there and murdered people, and it just really wasn't good. I was kind of hoping that it would be an accident and that the monster wouldn't have meant to have done that and it just accidentally spiraled. But no, I do believe the monster became quite a monster and quite scary towards the end. In terms of how scary this book actually was, I think the concept was scary. For me, the idea that there is a creature out there that is very, very strong and wants nothing more than to cause you pain and agony by killing off the people you love is one that I think is a very terrifying concept, and I totally understood Frankenstein's paranoia towards the end. because I would have also been super paranoid. So yeah, while I wouldn't say this is going to be one that haunts my dreams, I do think that is a very scary concept, and I did find the monster both endearing and terrifying in the fact that he seemed to want nothing more than to experience the joy of life, and he was looking at humans like, yeah, you guys are so lucky you get to just live. And it's something that we don't think about a lot, actually, is how lucky we are to just be able to live this life. And he's looking at it as someone who won't be accepted into our society. But then, of course, the flip side of that is that he seemed to have no self-control, and when he got angry, he would literally just go and murder. And by the end, he even confesses that he doesn't feel bad about what he does. And I think something strikes him when Frankenstein passes away at the end, where he realizes that his reason to exist has completely gone. So yeah, absolutely tragic story, and one that I am so happy that I've read, and one that it came round full circle really well. I was worried that the letters weren't going to get spoken about again. I was worried that Robert Walden was just going to drop off the face of the earth, but he even became the epilogue as well, which was really nice, and I think it all just came together so well, and I'm not surprised that it's become a timeless classic. So yeah, moving on to Dracula, I guess. Today I wanted to start reading Dracula the moment I woke up, but I have had to have an emergency dentist appointment put in, which makes me feel very nervous. It's only a fill-in. Fill-in fell out a couple of days ago, and I rang up and I didn't think they were going to give me such a speedy appointment, but they did, and I sort of had to say yes, because I'm thinking, well, if I don't say yes now, then I'm never going to say yes. And that's happening at 12 o'clock, which is in an hour, and absolutely the worst possible time for it to happen, because I usually get quite hungry around that time, but I get very nervous about the idea of eating before going to the dentist. So I thought the worst thing that I could possibly do is read something that could potentially be horrific in any way. I doubt that it will be scary, but I don't think I'd enjoy getting immersed in any kind of fiction right now. On the lead up, I just need to give myself a bit of time to think. So I am just spending a bit of time outside, just sort of waiting. Thought I'd film this little bit of the vlog mainly to just pass the time, really. And then when I come back, maybe I'll start off the Dracula part of this vlog. I have triumphed over the dentist. There is a filling in my tooth, and the nerves are on that beautiful come down from feeling very heightened and very tense. And that is a 10-month-long wait that I have had, where I've been trying to figure out how am I going to brave it. The first time that I went to the dentist, my anxiety was playing up like mad, to the point where they refused to work on my teeth because my whole body was vibrating and literally just shaking. But this time we played it cool. We got through. I've had therapy. I've had lots and lots of therapy. And not to do with the dentist, but just to do with my anxiety in general. And now here we are. I've done it. And to celebrate, what better way to do it than starting reading a little bit of Dracula? I have decided to give myself the day off as a celebration. I say a day off. This is still sort of work, because reading vlogs and doing the YouTube stuff counts as work to me. But at the same time, I've decided to give myself a day where I'm going to do some reading sprints. Maybe film a different video as well. I don't know. We'll see how I feel. But right now, I'm going to be diving into Dracula by Bram Stoker, which I love the cover of. Bought this bad boy at a garden centre once. I just saw that there were a load of classics on the side, and I couldn't resist the idea of buying this and the idea of reading it, and it's been sat on the side for a long time. In fact, it would be interesting to see when this cover was actually printed, to give you an idea, because I would have got it then. So it was printed 2018, which means I've probably had this book about 7 years. Do you see the little quick math that my brain was doing right there? So 7 years with never reading it, and having only seen the pop culture references. I'm wondering if the pop culture references are going to even be anything like the book itself. I've seen the German film Nosferatu. I'm wondering if it's anything like that. I know that was somewhat inspired by this. But I guess I'm just more interested than anything to find out what this has in store for me, and I'm really excited now that I don't feel all the actual genuine real fear. I can feel some atmospheric fear, so I'm going to put a nice little gothic sort of scenario on the ambience, pop on the old pumpkin candle, and get back into this Summer-Ween readathon. I'm 35 pages into this, and at the minute it's not gripping me as much as Frankenstein and Jekyll and Hyde did, as quickly as that. It is a much longer book though, so I'm going to give it a little bit of time. I don't mind it too much. It's not that it's a bad start per se. We are getting some good creepy horror vibes. This dude, Jonathan Harker, he's gone to stay at the house of Count Dracula, has realized that he's dealing with, well, I don't know if he knows it's a vampire, but he definitely knows that there's some kind of supernatural force going on, because he realized that there was actually no reflection in the mirror when he was having a shave, and Dracula was acting really kind of odd. I'm not really sure what the deal is with why he's actually there in the first place. I don't know if that's just me being a bit silly. I know that it's something to do with either a family member or friend who has sent him to go and speak to Dracula and help him know a little bit more about the English people, as I believe he wants to move to London or something. And they just keep having little conversations, but he has worked out that he is in fact a prisoner, and I'm not sure how he came to that conclusion, but I think I would be kind of scared to leave or do anything wrong against this man. But he does keep seeing Dracula do some creepy things. I gotta say, so far it has dived straight first into being horrific or gothic horror, so I gotta say it is good in that respect. It's not that it's bad, like I'm not having a bad time reading this. I'm just, at the minute, I think it could be something to do with me, and I mean I had quite an emotional, draining start to the day, so there's a chance that I'm just a bit emotionally drained, and that is why I'm struggling to connect as much. But towards the latter part of the reading sprint that I was doing, I did start to get into it, and when the time went off, I was a bit like, oh, I want to finish this chapter. So it's not like it wasn't gripping me, it just took a little longer for me to get into this one, and I know we're 35 pages in, we're like a tenth into the book now, so there's 9/10 of the book left, plenty of time for this one to really grip me. And yeah, we've got a good start. We're in a creepy castle with Count Dracula. What's to hate about that? It could just be me, but I'm looking forward to seeing where this book goes. And I haven't got anything as, good to say as I did about Frankenstein, which, the prologue to Frankenstein just set me up for such a very exciting read. Whereas this one, I kind of know I've just got to go on the journey a little bit more. There's no major intrigue for me at the minute. I think with the Jekyll and Hyde one, there was a level of intrigue because I wanted to know how the character would be portrayed and how it all came about that we find this, and there was an innate mystery. I also know it was really short, so it's very easy to sort of eat that up. And as for Frankenstein, well, it started out with such an interesting way. It seemed to be nothing like the stuff that I'd seen before in popular media that I was very curious as to where that was going to go, and I just really liked the writing style. With this one, however, it all seems to be kind of obvious. I know that sounds really silly because, of course, this is the source material, but it all seems to be a bit obvious at the minute. The only thing I am wondering is how do we stretch it out for the rest of the pages? Because I'm 35 pages into this book. There's plenty of time for other stuff to happen, and there's a lot about Dracula that I do not know. So while it hasn't intrigued me as quickly, I still think that within this book could be a story that I am very, very thankful that I read. So I'll give you another update when I'm about halfway through. I am officially halfway through this book, and I have to say, so far, it is the scariest book out of the three that I have read. It's the one that has made me feel the most uneasy. There's just this unsettling level of dread that lies underneath it from the moment that we start. I mean, the groundwork is done very well in the first 50 pages or so where we meet Dracula, which really surprised me that we went in and we met Dracula straight away. But then it's almost as if the author was saying, yeah, this is Dracula, he's this evil creature thing, and then makes you wonder where's he gone, what's he doing, and He's only in it for a little bit, and now all of a sudden we don't know where he is. He's kind of this background atmosphere now. He's not actually done anything. He is the dread, and you know that Dracula is coming along, and you're seeing the effects of what Dracula is doing in London without actually having seen Dracula just yet in the sort of London area. And it's done really nicely through just these letters that are sent across and diary entries and little bits from the newspaper, which make it feel a little bit like it is reality in many ways. And I think there's definitely, the style was definitely drawn upon from when they did the Blair Witch Project. I get the feeling that this idea of grounding in a way that makes it feel like reality is a technique that must have gone back a good while, because this book in particular is really utilising it, especially at the start. It says all these papers have been found and they've been put together in a certain way, and I've noticed that the dates can sometimes jump. I am in a bit of a weird, conflicted way with this book at the minute, because while it is making me feel this level of unease, and it is also, like, the atmosphere is just brilliant in this book. Like, it's a really great atmosphere. It doesn't matter where you are, you feel a level of dread, and you feel that something is going to happen, something's coming, because you have no idea what really went on at that castle. Like, you had a bit of a snippet as to what went on, and then after that, nope, nothing. So yeah, so on the one hand, I'm really interested in that. I was going to say gripped, but I feel like I'd be lying if I said I was gripped, because for some reason, and I don't know if this is just me being impatient as a reader, or whether this is just something that has happened due to the way that the book started, I feel more like a story has been interrupted rather than there's a mystery that I want to solve. I don't know if that's necessarily what Bram Stoker was going for. I do feel like having that first sort of 50 pages be really deep in the middle of the castle and like learning about Dracula and all these things was Bram Stoker's way of kind of setting us up. And I suppose without it, we wouldn't have the dread that I'm feeling reading the book. So I don't know if I'm just being contradictory here to what I'm feeling, but at the same time, the book feels a bit longer than the other two. And I know it is longer than the other two, and I don't know if that's the reason. I don't know if starting off with two really short stories kind of like then leading into this book, which is a full 380 page story. I don't know if that's having some kind of effect on it, but I am feeling like my brain is just going, get to the point. I really want to get to the point. I think, there's this big hoo-ha made about, oh no, what is happening to some of the characters? And I don't know if it's just because I kind of know what's happening to some of the characters. I just want to get to the point where something happens rather than waiting. That being said, contradictory in nature to what I literally just said is that the book itself kind of relies on this dread building up, and the pace of this dread building up as we go. So in a weird way, it kind of, I guess it needs it, but I'm at the halfway line now, and that's crazy to me. It feels like I've had a full story. I feel like it should be at least 3/4 in, as opposed to the halfway line. There's probably about 10-15% of it that could have been cut down a little bit for me. It's just taking its sweet time. And I don't know if that's just me being really impatient as a reader, or whether this book is just, slower than I think it should be. This is really weird though, because I remember I do read fantasy books and they are like really big. So it's in context to the different stories. And maybe it's because I've seen a story put together so well in Frankenstein in the similar fashion as well. They're both very similar, there's letters written, and with Frankenstein more so to do with the documents that are put together by the characters, but there's a similar vibe there, and it was done in a shorter amount of time, and I don't know if that is a good thing or a bad thing. And I think I'm going to have to come back to this and decide whether I enjoyed the book by the end. But at this point, at the halfway mark, I'm thinking I really want to get through this one. Now, there is also the factor that I'm really looking forward to reading Haunting Hill House. And it could be that, and that's really unfair on the book. So I don't really want that coming in and making you feel like, oh, he hates the book. I don't hate the book. I'm having a really great time. But my experience is also that maybe I'm trying to rush it too much. I don't know. And I'm going to try and slow that down a little bit. But that's where I'm at the minute, at the halfway mark. And who knows, maybe at the end I will come in and I'll be like, no, I was totally wrong. The other thing, actually, before I do move on, is that I've noticed that the themes aren't as strong in this book for me. I don't really know what the themes are, and maybe that's just me being silly, but the themes are really clear in Frankenstein and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. They were very, very clear themes for me, whereas Dracula, it's described kind of like in the Stephen King, I mentioned the Stephen King introduction to Salem's Lot, where I think he said that his mom used to say that it was like basically just trash, like stuff like Dracula. And I can kind of understand that feeling, because this book doesn't feel like it's necessarily saying anything massively poignant. Maybe I'm wrong, and I'm going to get a whole host of comments where people have their own opinion and believe that there is some kind of theme that sits deeply with them, and maybe it's just that there are themes in this that I am not resonating with quite as much as I do with, like, Frankenstein. Frankenstein had loads of interesting themes in there that I believe were applying to my everyday. I don't feel that way with Dracula. Dracula does just feel like a bit of fun. It feels like a bit of fun. We're here to get a little bit horrified, and then we're here to move on, and we just probably won't think about it again. Whereas Frankenstein has themes that sat with me. And if you disagree and you've got anything to say on that, like, I'd love to hear it and maybe like learn from your own experience. And maybe by the end of the book, I'll have a completely different take on that. But for now, I'm still waiting for the themes to really become apparent to me. It does just feel like a bit of fun. And it is a bit of fun. I'm having a lot of fun. Anyways, I'm going to continue having fun, and read a bit more and get back to you when I finish it. I have been listening to this book now for 10 days, and I only have one chapter left. And I think what I'm going to do to finish this off is I'm going to listen to the audiobook of that final chapter while doing some of the household chores, and then I'll be back to tell you what I thought about it. Just finished reading Dracula, and the thing is about this book, right, is there are snippets of good stuff, right? Told you all the good stuff about the atmosphere and thing, right? The issue with the atmosphere is that it doesn't hold on for the whole story for me. In fact, the book kind of derailed itself slowly but surely from the halfway line. Even up to the halfway line, it was starting to do it, but there was a level of hope because we hadn't hit the halfway line that maybe something else would come. I really just didn't enjoy it, and I really wanted to. I very nearly DNF'd this book, and I decided not to because it's quite a short book. I was quite close to the end, and I felt like maybe I needed to read to the end to get a better idea as to what my thoughts were on the book. And honestly, like, I don't want to be a party pooper or anything. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff in this book. Like, the whole vampire concept is awesome. I'm not really sure if Bram Stoker came up with it. I don't think he did. I think it's like an old legend. I don't know. Call me stupid in the comments. Gives me a bit of engagement. But other than that, it's just a lot of waffle, a lot of repetitivity, a lot of the same investigation stuff that was boring me. It was all investigation-y stuff. Like, when Van Helsing was being emotional to some extent, great. You know, when something was happening, when Mina got attacked, great. But most of the time, I'd say a good 60% of the book is just all of them waiting for something to happen. And it stops being as scary or as kind of, like, the first time I can understand with the whole Lucy build-up thing, even though I was kind of a bit like, oh, this is tedious. Like, at least I know what's coming, so it's tedious. But maybe it's because I know what's coming, so I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. But as soon as the audience know that this is a vampire and that we're going to take on Dracula, like, I want to be excited about that concept. That sounds like an amazing concept. We're about to take on this vampire. It's scary and awesome and wonderful. He's powerful, and we've set him up as this mysterious creature. And then it's just a lot of logical nonsense, which sounds so silly and like an oxymoron, but it is literally just turns into Van Helsing being clever, like solving, like figuring out where Dracula is and what he's doing through clever means, I will say, but never in a way where I feel hooked to find out the next bit. If anything, I'm waiting, and then you have different accounts from different people basically repeating themselves and saying what they thought of the same situation, but it's never really that interesting of a change. And, I just felt a little bit, well, by the end, I was a little bit bored and I was just waiting for it to come to an end. And I wish that wasn't the case. I really do. Having really enjoyed the first 2 books, I was really hoping that Dracula would be one that I could add to the collection. I like vampires. I do. I don't think I love vampires. I grew up in the era of Twilight, right? And I think that was a time where vampires were probably having a hard time, okay? They were having a tricky time. They were sparkling in the sunlight or something. I don't know what they were doing, but they weren't doing vampire stuff. They were making up new lore and things. So vampires have never really been that exciting to me. Dracula kind of reminded me of why it is exciting. But I just did not enjoy it, and I found myself wanting to DNF, and I find it really hard to DNF books when I'm trying to read them for a vlog as well, because I want to give you my full thoughts, and I didn't want to DNF and be like, well, the reason I DNF'd was this, because who knows, I just wanted the full experience. I don't think it's because I'm waiting for the next one. I actually do think it was because it got tedious, because there were times when I was actually engrossed, but then there was other times when I was just like, is this ever going to end? Are we ever going to get to the point? The ending was satisfying in theory. It was satisfying on paper, But how we got there, it just didn't do it for me. Like, the execution of that ending, for saying we had so much build-up, and we took so much time to get there, the ending just didn't slap in the way it probably should have slapped, had it have built up in a more exciting way. And I get it, it's an older book. I shouldn't really be judging it by today's standards. And, I'm very much a modern reader. But I didn't with Frankenstein, and Frankenstein gripped me right through to the very end. So, I don't think that's an excuse for it. So I'm going to move on now to the one that I am the most excited / most anxious about. For 2 reasons. I am excited about this one, obviously, as you know, I've already told you, I love the TV show. The same reason that I'm anxious. I'm anxious that this is going to be not very good. I am anxious that I'm going to go into this. I'm going to try and go into it and try and forget the TV show, right? It's a different thing, completely different entity, same name. One has a few inspirations from the other, but this is completely different. So I'm not expecting the TV show in this book, okay? Because that would be really unfair. I am also anxious because I am worried that it's going to creep me out in the way that I can't sleep. I don't know which one I want more, for it to just not be as good as the TV series, or for it to creep me out to a point where I'm like looking like around when I'm alone in the house, and it's nighttime. Yeah, we'll see. We'll find out. But at the minute, I'm trying to build myself up to do something a little bit crazy tomorrow morning. And that is go and have a little read at the graveyard. I've got this really lovely graveyard nearby, and it's got this really nice little seating area where I want to go and read a little bit of this book. I want to open this book up. I can't think of a better place to open this than the quaint little graveyard. Have a little chill and read there for a little bit, just to soak in the first chapter. And yeah, and this is it. We're dropping the audiobooks now as well, so we'll probably slow down just a little bit. Not that I didn't really quickly get through Dracula, to be honest, but either way. Next time you'll see me, I'm either going to have gone to the graveyard, or I'm going to be telling you that I absolutely bottled it and didn't dare go to the graveyard. For one, I don't want everyone to be like, why is he just sat reading Haunting a Hill House in a graveyard? And for 2, it's kind of creepy to read Haunting a Hill House in a graveyard, so I guess we'll see. We'll find out. You'll see in like a few seconds, and I'll see in a few hours, maybe more than a few hours. I've just finished reading the first chapter of this book, and quite as expected, it's not exactly the same as the TV series, but I always said that I was going to go into this taking it as a separate entity, as I know that it is only inspiring parts of the TV series. There are some similarities, but I am just going to treat it completely as a new thing. So far in the book, what I'm really enjoying is the introduction of the main characters. Dr. Montgomery, dude who wants to do some looking around Hill House. Not really got much of an opinion on him, but the other ones, Eleanor, really like her because she gets the most attention in the first chapter. She is actually a very interesting character. I love some of the decisions that she makes throughout. She's quite a defiant character, and there was a particular part when she was sat in a cafe and she saw a little girl who wanted to drink out of her star cup, and she was enthusing the little girl to defy her parents and not just drink out this normal cup because her star cup was at home. And I find that a very relatable situation as a parent who can imagine my daughter refusing to drink out of anything but a star cup, and then you've got this person that's just watching going, you know what, defy them. Whereas as a parent, you actually don't want them to defy. But I think that said a lot about her as a character, and also the fact that she was told not to go to the local area, but she does go to the local area. I think that we're building up to what is going to be an interesting character going into Hill House. At the minute, whenever the house is mentioned, things feel kind of creepy, but I feel kind of safe in this chapter because we're not in the house, we're just meeting the characters. I really can't wait to learn a little bit more about Theo, or Theodora, who hasn't got a surname, which I thought was a really cool little trait of that character. Again, while I'm not comparing it to the television series, I can't help but know that my favourite character in the TV series is Theo, so I can't wait to see what Theo was originally written as. And then, of course, we have Luke, who is apparently very untrustworthy, but only there because he has to be there, because someone from the family who owns Hill House has to be there, and one day he will inherit Hill House, apparently. So it's going to be interesting to see all of these characters come together and be inside the house. And what really struck me the most is the fact that I was kind of trundling along, enjoying the vibe. There's a very low-level sense of dread, probably not as much as like Dracula managed in its first 20-30 pages. But the second she saw the house, her description was, the house is vile. Hill House is vile, and it just doesn't need any more than that. There is like a brief description about the house at the start, but I don't think it needs any more than that, because straight away, as soon as I saw that, and I don't know if that's because I've seen the TV series or because the book's just really good at doing something as simple as just one sentence making you feel kind of nervous. The second she was in Hill House and she was there, I started to feel a little bit like, oh no, something's going to happen here. So I'm very anticipant as to what this story is actually going to hold. I'm looking forward to meeting Theo and Luke and seeing where that goes. But so far, it's been a really positive start to a brand new story. And the style of storytelling as well, I like it a lot more than Dracula. So we'll see. We'll find out where this goes. I'm on page 124 of this book, making me almost just a page over the halfway line, and so far I am happy to say that I have been lapping it up. The atmosphere of this thing is second to none. It is absolutely crazy that practically nothing has really happened in this story, but the stuff that has happened has been really creepy, really interesting, the way that it's laying out its ideas. And I don't know, what it is about this is that, like, more seem to happen in Dracula, yet for some reason I'm enjoying this one just that little bit more, and I don't know if it's just the bias because of the series, or whether it's the fact that, I don't know, I'm really just enjoying the atmosphere. I think the way that she writes the house is just so good. The way that the house feels like a character within itself, and that you feel really discombobulated when you're going around said house experiencing certain things. And I'm starting to think about what it says on the back. It says that one of the people in the house might not actually survive. And I have got my theory as to who that is, and it isn't based on anything other than the reading experience. I think that it possibly is Eleanor. She seems to be the one that is so susceptible and very scared at some of the stuff that goes on. She does keep mentioning her mother, which I find very interesting. I don't really know if we've heard much about her mum. I know we heard about her sister, but I don't know how much we heard about her mum, and I can't wait to see how that relationship with her mum is further developed, and how that is actually affecting things, because she seems to be constantly making mentions of her mum. And also when she went to the library, for some reason she was too scared to go in there. That is what Shirley Jackson is doing really well in this book, is making this whole place just feel really, really unwelcome and feel like really scary. I think there's something about the idea of a house being a bad place to be, because houses are supposed to be a homely place, whereas Hill House is absolutely not. So I don't really know what's going to go on for the rest of the book. I'm trying to figure out as to where all of these characters are going to end up. Theodora is definitely my favourite, because she's really whimsical and crazy, and I kind of like that. I think the character work in this book is just really good. I like the fact that it's just 3 of them and then Dr. Montgomery, because it kind of, I don't know, they seem to all be really strong characters within themselves. I don't fully trust Luke because of what was said at the start of the story. I don't know if that's going to change as time goes on. I'm interested to see what it is that is actually haunting Hill House. I don't know if Hill House itself makes you get haunted by the ghosts of your life. That could be something that is going on here, but I am really looking forward to learning more about what is actually going on with this place. And I don't know, I kind of expected ghosts, and I'm not getting ghosts, but maybe I am. Maybe I'm getting ghosts of the past. But either way, I don't really care, because the way that it's written is so clever that I actually just find myself getting lost in the way these characters are experiencing the story. I'm very immersed in it, and I can't wait to see where it goes. I'll be honest, I wasn't going to update again until I finished this book, but I'm currently on page 188. It's quite likely that in my next reading session, which is tomorrow, I will probably finish this thing, and I kind of, as I'm reading, I'm thinking, I want to log some thoughts before I get to the end. I don't want to know all the answers next time I speak about this book, so here I am speaking a bit more about this book. Things have really hit the fan over the last few chapters. There's been some super creepy moments that I've really liked, but I think what's really struck me about this particular book is the fact that there's such an interesting mystery underhand. And I think it's this idea of, like, we don't even know what the mystery is. Something is going on, but we don't know what is going on. And I think that's kind of one of the things that makes this so gripping. It's the fact that we don't fully know. Obviously, the big question is, what's going on at the house? Is it haunted? Is something wrong? Or are they all just going mad? That is a huge question that keeps coming up in my head. It wouldn't be all of them. It would only be Eleanor, because we're reading from her point of view. Is Eleanor going mad? I don't know at this moment in time, but I do come with a few theories. So at the minute, it's starting to look more and more like something is going on with Eleanor. And the writing on the wall says, Eleanor, come home. And to me, that says that where she is right now is her home. She is in Hill House, which I think means she is somehow related to the people that own this house, and I think this is her coming home for the end of her life. I don't know, and I might be slightly cheating, because I've watched the TV series and there are somewhat hints that are similar, but that is the vibe I am getting, purely from reading the book, that she has been summoned to the house, and that everything that is happening around them is to do with Eleanor. I don't know who these people are that have come along. I don't really know the purpose of them. I'm starting to wonder if anything is real. Eleanor has mentioned that she has a starry cup, right? A cup of stars. She saw that kid at the start who refused to drink up anything but her cup of stars. And she wanted her to defy her parents. She's also seemingly got a problem with her mum. And I'm starting to wonder if that little girl that she saw at the cafe was actually her. And not there. It was her looking at her past and wishing that she'd done something differently. That is one of my theories. I am really creeped out right now. I've spent an hour reading this. I'm now on my own in the house, and I feel really creeped out having read this. So I do believe that this is doing the job of creeping me out. It's doing that thing that I told you earlier in the vlog, that I thought it was okay when I was reading it, but now I'm not reading it, and I'm on my own, and I'm feeling a little bit creeped out. And I think that's really good. I'm really glad that it's hitting that standard of creepiness that I really like. I've only ever really got this from reading a book of ghost stories set in the place that I live. That is probably one of the most visceral feelings of horror that I've ever felt, to the point where, like, the hairs on the back of my neck are literally standing up at that point. You know, if I'm out with my family and I'm reading something, I'm so immersed in it and it's scary. That's the most scary. And I was thinking, what is it that makes me scared. Because if I ever want to write horror one day, what is it? What is it that's making me so scared? Like, what is it that makes me scared? And I think it's this idea that you expect one thing and then the other thing happens. And I think there's that classic trope, that moment in countless things where a person rationalizes a certain situation only to find out that their rationale was incorrect and there is no actual correct explanation as to what was going on. And that happened in one of the scenes in this book where Eleanor thought she was holding Theodora's hand, and it turned out she doesn't know whose hand she was holding, and it was really creepy. I'm really feeling creeped out having read that. This book, it's doing well. It's doing really good. I'm really enjoying it. There has been a slight disruption in the rhythm of the book. Dr. Montgomery's wife has turned up with a guy called Arthur, and I'm not really sure the purpose of this, but I was getting very creeped out, and then they came along and everything feels somewhat normal. So I'm not feeling as worried. But I'm trying to decide whether this is something to do with Eleanor's delusion, because I'm not sure they ever actually said that his wife is coming along. I don't remember that happening. And I feel like I might have been gaslit by this book a little bit. And I don't really want to go back to check, because I might be right. It might be wrong, and it might have already said, yeah, his wife's going to come around after a week. But I don't remember there ever being a mention of the fact that his wife was coming along. Like, nope. No recollection of that, so I don't know. But either way, the wife is very annoying, seems to have disrupted everything, seems very negative about things. Eleanor's turn in opinion of Theodora was very jarring and sharp, and the level of hatred she seems to be feeling, to me, is contributing to my idea that she is definitely going mad, in some respect. She's feeling so connected to the house, and it feels really dangerous. It feels really dangerous. I have no idea kind of how much danger, but I have got a theory, and I don't think Eleanor's going to make it out alive. I'm starting to wonder whether Eleanor is actually alive, and whether if she's already dead and she's reliving moments in this real weird mumbo-jumbo kind of headspace. I did say to my wife today, I said, I really hope that by the end of this book, we have an idea as to what's going on with Eleanor. Because I think this is not a book that I want to be left on an ambiguous ending. I can't tell you if this book is great, because I need to see the ending first to really decide whether that whole experience was brilliant. What I can say is right now, it is delivering the creep factor. And it is everything that I wanted from this book in a way that I didn't expect to be able to receive it. So that's really cool. Thoroughly enjoying this one. And I really hope it sticks the landing. So I guess we're going to see in a minute. This book is phenomenal. I have just finished reading it and I really struggled to finish it because it was genuinely scaring me so much to the point where I was really trying to push through those pages. Now, let me explain why it was scaring me, because I think a lot of people would find it quite tame. I think a lot of people would probably read this and go, that's not horror. But paranormal horror does scare me. I don't like, gore fest and stuff like that. This book did none of that. This book made me feel scared without having to be outwardly trying to make me feel scared. And I got to talk about why. Because I have not had a situation where I've really struggled to finish a book. No, this has happened twice to me this year, actually. This book in particular was scary, but when I read Sunset on the Reaping, the final few pages of that book killed me. I felt so damaged from reading that book. I was doing a reading vlog for Hunger Games at the time, and I was doing a chronological read-through, and I actually stopped reading the Hunger Games because that book broke me. And I do intend to read them at some point. It's just my mental health was not there for that. And I was just like, whoa, okay. But that's a different book. This book was really difficult to finish because of the descent into madness that one of the characters experiences. Like, I think it's written so well. Like, it was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. And it really tapped into what I think is a real fear of mine, and that is losing control. That is so scary. I don't need ghosts to scare me if a character is losing control. And it was horrible. It was a horrible experience to see her go from being well put together and, well, not fully well put together, had a bit of damage, but still. And then where it all ends up. It was so tragic and sad, but hard to read because being in that mad character's head was so visceral and required so little from the author. Like, it amazes me the amount of times people are like, oh, you need to use all the senses. This book didn't use many senses and yet still scared the heck out of me. I think, visceral writing's good, but this they didn't need it. It really didn't need it. I said it at the start when it was like, the house is vile. And it's like, oh, that really isn't a very big description, but that one description in that one sentence is like, I'm freaked out. I'm really freaked out. I don't want to be here. And as the book progressed, it just got worse and worse. And like, nothing is fully explained in this book, but there is an ending, and I didn't want it to be ambiguous, and it wasn't ambiguous, which I was really happy with. But there's a lot of ambiguity in here, and there's a lot of questions that are not answered that I think don't need answering and are enough for us to speculate on. Heck, the whole TV show was inspired, I think, by the idea of this house bringing out people's worries, and the house ruins lives. That house ruins lives, and it's so interesting. And the comparisons to the TV series were really good, but actually reading it on its own, it is its own piece of work. It is nothing like the TV series. There's similarities, but there's nothing concrete. Like, it is a very different piece of work, and Hill House, the TV series Haunted Hill House, is very, very good and amazing that they made that as a response to this. So good. This book, I'm going to have to say that this is probably one of my, I think it might be my first 5 out of 5 this year. I just really enjoyed it. It gripped me from the start. It slowly drip fed me, made me feel kind of like, oh, this isn't too scary. And then all of a sudden, I couldn't get through those last few pages. I mean, I pushed on through, but I was there and I was huffing and puffing. I was like, okay, we can do this. I had to stop before the final chapter and psych myself up and get a new cup of tea. It was crazy. So I'm really happy I read that. And it's beaten Frankenstein. It has beaten Frankenstein, which has been my favorite read during this vlog. But now it's my second favorite read because Hill House was just so good. And I highly recommend anyone who loves the series to read it, but go in with a very different expectation. And also, reading the TV series is interesting because you're constantly looking for the similarities and you're looking for what it is that they got from that. And when you find little snippets and you're like, oh, cool, that's actually genuinely really cool that they did that. But it doesn't ruin the overall story, and you will still get a really good time out of it. So I absolutely highly recommend it. I'm going to be moving on to this now. I am so not sure I'm ready. I'm not ready for Stephen King. I'm going to read it, obviously, but right now I feel very vulnerable after that read because it's just unsettled me so much. And I love that. It's in a good way. Being unsettled for horrific reasons were disgusting things I don't like. Being unsettled for something creepy and something thought-provoking, I'm pretty cool with that. I don't know what I'm getting myself in for with The Mist. I have no idea what this is about. There's mist. There's fog. People die in the fog, maybe? I don't know. I've not even seen the films. I know of the films. I know about them. Sort of. I just know there's a fog. I remember seeing there's a big fog. So I don't know what I'm getting myself in for, but I'm really excited to read this one. Maybe not as excited as Hill House. I probably should have done Hill House last. But maybe this will be a cool down. Or maybe it won't. Maybe it'll just ramp it up and I'll be like, oh my goodness gracious me, what have I got myself in for? I better get started reading it. And when I start reading it, I will let you know my thoughts. Good luck to me. I'll be honest, it's been about a week and a half and I haven't really made much progress on The Mist. I'm hoping to do some reading sprints today to be able to rectify that. But things just got a bit hectic. Life picked up and I just didn't get around to reading this one just yet. It's not because I'm not interested in reading it, it's mainly because I'm reading a bunch of other stuff for a few other videos, and yeah, I just haven't had a chance. From what I have read, I've read the first 22 pages of the book, and so far, I am thinking that I'm going to enjoy it. However, I am not as excited as I was for The Haunted Hill House, and I'm not feeling the same level of anticipation or love for this one as I did for Hill House, and I'm thinking maybe I should have left Hill House to the very end because I don't really want it to taint this experience of reading The Mist. But I think it is inevitably going to be on my mind, having gone through, I think, what is the perfect experience of a horror book for me. I think that's what I like the most. I really liked the paranormal aspects of that, and I don't know if I'm going to get that in this book. So from what I've read so far, I think there is some genuinely great things in this book. I'm enjoying the setup of the main character being a father with a wife and child, as I can relate to being a father, and the idea of having to have the level of responsibility while going through whatever's going to go on in this book is kind of scary. I can see that being quite scary and quite relatable, and definitely one of the things that makes Stephen King so good is his work on characters. I always find that the character work in Stephen King books is the thing that draws me in the most. And I think you can forgive it if any of the sort of plot points don't work, because you enjoy the characters so much, and the depiction of reality in a Stephen King book is significantly interesting. What I find interesting about this is that it is just very much a realistic scenario. They've just gone through a bit of a freak storm. There's a lot of danger around already. I can already feel danger in the fact that there's these rods, and if the 5-year-old stands on them, then it wouldn't end very well for said 5-year-old. And I find that a very terrifying prospect as a parent, the idea of that level of danger being around, knowing how curious my own 3-year-old is, thinking how would you get your 5-year-old to avoid just going up and sort of prodding it or kicking it or, doing something stupid because they just are curious. So that kind of stresses me out, the idea of trying to keep Billy safe, as it were. The Mist hasn't fully appeared yet, so I don't really know what is going on there. The storm itself was quite visceral and quite scary. So ultimately, nothing has actually gripped me about this book just yet. And I feel like that probably will change when I give it a little bit more time. I don't think, even though it's a novella and it's like 170 pages, 22 pages isn't really enough. But I like to give you an update fairly early on so that we know what my initial thoughts are going in. So whether we know this is going to, by the end of this, you'll know if my thoughts do change. I know if Dracula started off feeling a little bit like, I'm not really sure. And then I ended up not really enjoying it. I'm hoping that we can have the opposite effect with this one, so I'm going to go dive right into this. I'm going to do some reading sprints today, and I'm hoping that I can potentially get it finished today, but I don't know. We'll see. I've got a lot of work on, so it might be over a couple of days, but at least get, past the halfway line when I'll speak to you next. This is interesting. I am not sure if I'm going to be able to finish The Mist. And I know that there's going to be a lot of people out there that comment on this and say, whatever you want to say, right? I will explain. I am on page 56 of this book. I could put on a level of bravado and just be like, nah, this book just didn't do it for me, and I'm not, it's not a good book, blah, 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 but I'm not going to. I'm going to be totally honest with you, right? Now, this isn't me saying I'm going to absolutely call it quits, because I will be giving it another go, but I don't think I'm going to for now. I've put it down. And the reason is because it genuinely was making me feel actually scared. And when I say actually scared, I don't mean good bit of fun scared. I mean, it was getting me really nervous, like I was starting to feel the symptoms of panic. Which I think is a testament to how brilliant Stephen King is as a writer, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but I want to explain why I personally don't want to push myself through that feeling. Because I myself suffer with an anxiety disorder, which went a little bit mad back in 2024, where I would be experiencing literal terror every single day. And I find that very difficult to relive, and I find it very difficult to go into that world where I'm feeling scared again. I don't mind a bit creepy, bit spooky, but genuinely scared, it's just not a feeling that I want to do. It's not fun for me. So So yeah, well, now I've got that out the way and you're all sitting there judging me going, you know what a wimp, can't even read a book, for goodness sake. And I think I started this vlog like, no book has ever made me feel scared. This book did, man, and I want to talk about why, because I'm super impressed by it. Like, it happened at the coming of the mist, right? And I think just the positioning that Stephen King did with this, like, he put me in the eyes of this character who has a family. I can highly relate to that. They go to the supermarket, can highly relate to that. And then just the concept of like something so terrifying happening, not knowing what's happening to my wife at home, having people around me. It's the people around that are panicking as well. The things that you probably wouldn't think about on a trip to the supermarket. You wouldn't think about it. You don't think to be scared that what if something happens and what if I won't be able to get back. There was a lady there in the book who wanted to get back to her children, was worried about the babysitter and her children, and just the sheer level of panic that would give you as a parent. Like, I don't think this part of the book would have fazed me that much had I not been a parent. But it does. Like, I think when you become a parent, I don't know if anyone else can relate to this, but you become a lot more sensitive to horrific material. I don't know why, but everything suddenly becomes that little bit more scary. And like, yeah, I think it really put me in a situation, and the idea of this mist that you can't go through a certain place of the street because you can't see it, but also you don't know what happens when you go in there. This fear of the unknown. Like, Stephen King shifted this book from 0 to 1,000 within the space of like 15 pages. And I was reading it marveling at the craft, really. I was marveling at how absolutely amazing that is. That's such a whirlwind to make me feel physical symptoms. My head was going all hot and I was just sort of breathing differently. To make me feel that level of unease through words alone that I am just reading off a page. To me, that's such a talent, and I really have to appreciate that. I'm not going to DNF this yet. I'm going to wait, and I'm going to try this again on a different day and see if that day goes any better, and if I feel more comfortable on that day. Because it could just be that I'm having a day where I'm slightly heightened, and this is causing me to feel more heightened. Or it could just be that this book is genuinely quite scary and I wouldn't last 5 minutes reading genuinely horrific material. That being said, I don't think a Stephen King book's ever made me feel that scared or claustrophobic. I feel claustrophobic reading this from all the characters that are scared, from like all the people, the waves of people. It was also the way that this woman was really terrified and she wanted some help and no one wants to help her because they are too busy being terrified as well. That is a part of humanity that I did actually get to see when I was going through my mental breakdown. I think that was just really like strumming the chords of like a memory of like my own where I felt helpless and no one was able to help me. And I think that was bringing up true, real trauma, and that's why this has affected me so much. I wouldn't say I was triggered by this per se, but I would say that there's just elements in this that is making me feel genuinely nervous. And I think that if anyone's looking for a great horror that's a short sitting and wants to be scared, this is really good. I'm sure there's a lot worse out there. I've actually heard that this is just spooky to a lot of people. It's amazing that it's just scary to me. And I'm literally sitting here in awe of how genuinely scared I just felt from words. And I really love that about the writing craft. And I want to be able to have that kind of a movement and effect on someone else on my own writing one day, because that's wild. So for now, I'm going to park this today. And I'm going to come back to it on another day and you'll find out if I DNF it or not. But right now, I'm genuinely feeling quite scared. And I highly recommend anyone this book because it's just really well written, and I haven't finished it yet, but at this point I think that if you enjoy this type of feeling, you will really like this book. So I'm gonna stop reading it now. I feel really bad about the fact that I'm not reading anymore. I feel bad that I'm making the choice to stop, which is I really want to finish this one. I want to do like all 5 of the books in this particular video, but I might not. And that makes me feel kind of sad. But we'll see. We'll see. Maybe I'll come back to this. Maybe I'll come back all guns blazing and we'll get through this. But at the minute, I'm taking a break. Oh, goodness, the judgment in the comments. Go! Do it. Give me some engagement and comment on how much of a wimp I am. So I tried again with this book. And I finished it. Yeah, that's right. I was scared to read it, but I read it anyway. It did take me 4 days. I had to keep having breaks. It wasn't even that scary as time went on. Like, there was some really, really gruesome stuff that happened in this book that did, like, scare me when one of the guys got eaten by a tentacle thing, and any of the creatures, just the way they were described. That was all pretty scary stuff and kept me on the edge of my seat, but I don't think it was any of that was making me feel the symptoms of anxiety. It was actually the way that the people were reacting and the mob mentality that was developing with all the people that were involved in this story, and the way that they will squabble to find a way to cope, and in their ways of coping, sometimes it was very dangerous and very scary. And it was this rising fear, this idea that no one really knew what was going on. And when everything calmed and the main character was starting to take charge a little bit more, I felt a little calmer, but not that calm, because there was always something going on. I was reading every chapter thinking, okay, what's the horrible thing that's going to happen in this chapter? But overall, I had a really great time reading this book. I genuinely think it is the most gripping that I read during this entire vlog. I am so glad that I pushed through to the end, because it was just enjoyable, and I feel like to put it down because it was doing such a good job of doing the thing that it promised it would do. This thing told me it was a horror from the off. I knew what I was getting myself in for. My wife said, you have once DNF'd because of something that was too horrific. And I did, yes. There was a book that I DNF'd because something happens in that book that was so off the ball. I was reading a thriller. It wasn't even a horror. Nothing horrific had happened. And then this one scene happened, and it was like the most horrific thing I've ever read that's not in a horror. And it happened in the second James Patterson novel. So if you've read that, you might know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I had to stop because it was so sadistic and horrible. I just could not continue reading. Thankfully, that type of thing did not happen in this. Nothing really disturbed me in this. It just got me scared and tense on an edge. I didn't enjoy feeling scared and tense on an edge at first, which is why I was a bit like, oh, I don't know if I can complete this, because it's making me feel genuinely nervous. But I pushed through to the end purely because it wasn't that I wasn't enjoying it. Like, whenever I put it down between sittings, I was thinking, I need to know what happens next. And now I've finished it, I've got a few thoughts. The first thought is that I think that the scariest thing about this book isn't the monsters. It is the villain, Mrs. Carmody, who is the human, the little old lady who just is obsessed with antiques at the start. And the way that she goes so crazy and so scary. Like, I think that was what I found really scary, actually. It was that they were all stuck in a room with a monster while not being able to leave because there were monsters on the outside. And she was the monster. She was slowly but surely gathering followers and wanted to do whatever she wanted to do. And she was probably the greatest source of tension, so that when she was dealt with, I almost felt like I could read whatever else the book had coming. Like, monsters eating people was written very well and very visceral, and did make me feel a bit nervous. But Mrs. Carmody, she was like a ticking time bomb, and I was like, can we not all just be friends? Can we not all just be kind to each other? We're all in a difficult situation. Why do we now have to resort to this crazy attitude of deciding that you want to do human sacrifice? I didn't like that. I was like, no, we've got to get away from her. And I think it's really clever of Stephen King to create such a character who is essentially the monster. The real monster is Mrs. Carmody and the way she reacts to the situation. The other monsters, they're operating off animal instinct, which does make them scary and makes them unpredictable, but it also makes them almost like forgettable, as in, like, you know, they're just the bad ones. Whereas a human, you kind of expect more of a human. I don't know why. I think you do. And, you know, Mrs. Carmody going on about killing one of the other people off, and then at the end, when she wants it to be Billy, who is this 5-year-old innocent boy, with no explanation as to why she wants that, Yeah, absolutely wild. The other part about this was the fact that I'm a parent and the idea of taking my child to the supermarket only to be stuck there, not even knowing whether my wife is going to survive. And I think that really knocked me out pretty early on, when Stephen King made it very clear that the wife does not survive, or probably doesn't survive. Now I've read the whole book, I realise that the wife might survive, but we never find out. And I think that's really sad. And just knowing, like, seeing the boy be in hysterics, wanting his mummy, and like knowing that there is no actual conclusion coming where he is going to be able to see his mum again. The hope is literally drained away from you in the first chapters, where he leaves and he goes, and that was the last time I saw my wife. And you're like, oh no, what's going to happen? What's so bad? And then I think that was really causing me distress, because I knew this poor kid was going to go through that sad moment when he realized that, you know, his mom isn't waiting for him. And I don't know, that was another thing that really broke me. It was the fact that the book gave me nothing to hold on to for hope. Like, the only thing you can hope for is that the character survives with his son. That's the only thing you really can hold on to and hope for, because everything else is just taken away very early on. So there's a lot of good psychological games going on. But equally then, there's this really great pacing to Stephen King's writing. And you can really tell that he knows what he's doing. Like, I've read very little Stephen King. Like, I've already told you some of the stuff I've read in a different blog. But I've read very little Stephen King. And what I have read of Stephen King, I've always enjoyed. But I always say, you know, my mental health can never sustain reading a full one. I read Salem's Lot through to the end, and that's it. And that was because my mental health was just in a really good place during that time. So yeah, it's unfortunate that I've been missing out, and I do want to read more of Stephen King. I really do. I think I'd really like to read The Shining one day, and Pet Sematary. They're two that I'd really like to read. Let me know if you've read them, and they're going to be worse experiences than this in the comments. But I genuinely don't think that I would have been too bothered by this had it not been so relatable, and had it not been so, like, I'm so, like, as a parent, seeing myself in that situation I was just there, and I was thinking, well, what would I do? What would I do? How would I get through this? But yeah, Stephen King's very good at exploring the grey areas of humanity, down to the point where the main character cheats on his wife. And like, I don't really, it was a bit of an uncomfortable scene for me, because I was like, why are you doing this one thing? Well, because that kind of removes my feeling that you even want to get back to her. But I also do understand that they are in a very scary situation. They don't know if they're going to survive the night, and the two of them, they have each other and they want to be close. And I do understand that is kind of what Stephen King is going for that, and that makes absolute sense. And that's the thing about Stephen King. He writes flawed human beings, because we are all flawed. And everyone tries to pretend that they're not flawed, but they are. They're all flawed. There is no such thing as a human being that is not flawed. And Stephen King is very good about being honest about humanity, and like, revealing things that he understands about humanity that it's scary for us to admit that we understand it too. And I think I really appreciate that about Stephen King's writing. The ending, I wasn't fond of the ending. I don't think the ending is there to be fond of, though. Like, he even took the mick out of the ending by claiming it was a Hitchcockian ending where, you know, you have to decide, and his dad apparently hated them, the character's dad. And I think that was fair enough, a fair play. It kind of softened the blow of, like, what the ending was going to be. You're a bit like, okay, I'm not really expecting a conclusion here, because it is only 180 pages. And frankly, I do think a whole book could be made about the world where the mist is. I think a whole franchise could be made based on that. And, you know, hats off to Stephen King for just keeping it short. I think leaving us on that mystery works a lot better than probably giving us that conclusion. I wanted the conclusion with all of my heart. I wanted the moment when they got home safely and Billy went over to his mom and gave her a big hug. And then David had to awkwardly explain about what happened with Amanda, but they get through it because she understands, you know, all that stuff. But no, that is not the ending we got. And I don't think I expected that ending either. Like, I wasn't reading it going, oh, because he makes it very clear that ending's not going to happen. I think the reason why that works so well is because you know it's not going to happen. He literally states it very early on before anything happens. And that was the last time I saw my wife. And that means that just removes any expectation that he's ever going to have it. You want it so badly, but you are sad because you know you won't get it. And then the ending that is actually delivered isn't really an ending at all. but it's acceptable because of the way that Stephen King writes it. So yeah, if you're looking for a really thrilling few hours of reading, this book is the one for you. It is so good, and I enjoyed it. I have to say I enjoyed every minute. Like, I know I chickened out for a second there, and a lot of people will probably comment in the comments section saying I'm a coward and that there's much scarier things out there, and I'm sure there is, but I want to remind you that bravery is being scared and doing it anyway, and that's what I did with this book. I braved this book, okay? I don't like sadistic things, but I can deal with creepy things. I don't necessarily like gore either, but again, I can deal with creepy, and that's kind of what I want out of horror. But this book, it wasn't sadistic. It was scary, but not sadistic scary to the point where I'm like questioning my own sanity. I would say it was the scariest out of the 5 that I read. It's the one that really did leave me feeling the most scared, and I think maybe it's a good thing that I went for this last, because I know I was originally being like, oh, well, I don't know if maybe I've jumped the gun and Haunting Hill House is the best one. I still enjoyed Haunting of Hill House probably the most out of all 5 of these books, but this is the best quality scare that I have had. And so hats off to Stephen King for creating such an awesome novella. I mean, that's really silly, isn't it? Hats off to Stephen King, like the king of... He's a great writer. So, and I enjoy his books, so... I enjoy his writing style. One day I will enjoy his books. But that is everything for this vlog, really. Thank you so much for watching it. It's been a very different pace, I know, and I'm sure a lot of you didn't stick around to the end because I'm obviously not really established myself as doing this long a vlog before. But honestly, I've just really enjoyed the ability to just chill with you, read some books, explain what I think of a few books. Let me know if you enjoyed this kind of thing. Also, in the comments section, when I do another spooky season read, what kind of books would you like to see me read? Preferably try and keep it to ones that you know I'll enjoy, not ones you know will disturb me, because I will just DNF anything that disturbs me. I'm thinking of you cows. So yeah, please drop a comment in the comments section. If you did enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. But until then, toodle pip.